All right. Welcome, free radicals. My name is Dave. Some people call me Harmless Dave on the other platform, but here I am doing what I do over on the political side of things. Thanks for joining me. Please subscribe to the channel. We've got lots of new subscribers, mostly thanks to Scott Ritter and Connor Freeman and some other great guests that we've had on. You're getting me solo here, folks, because this is a story that I read and I read it again. And I said, no, this can't be happening. Told my wife, I said, I think I'm going to have to go on the Radical Independent and talk about this. So here's the story coming from Zero Hedge. And actually, they are citing the Department of Health and Human Services. Here it is. The Biden regime is buying up to $290 million in anti-radiation drugs for use in nuclear emergencies amid escalating tensions with Russia and heightened threats of a nuclear war. Now, I know a lot of people just don't think, there's not going to be a nuclear war. Just stop, okay? No way would Russia do this. No way would the United States continue to escalate and not negotiate, especially now. I mean, look, hey, Zelensky wants to be a part of NATO now. He's demanding to be a part of NATO. The media is reporting that the referendum is just like Russia annexing territories, right? They just annexed a couple of places. There was no vote. They just said, yeah, these territories are now ours, right? Even though they had a vote. So, all right, let's get to the story because this is mind-boggling, okay? Coming from the Health and Human Services for immediate release as a part of long-standing ongoing efforts to be better prepared to save lives following radiological and nuclear emergencies. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services is purchasing a supply of the drug Nplate from Amgen USA, Inc. They're so happy to tell you who the drug company is. And here we are. You know, I guess we don't have to worry about monkeypox when we're all going to be annihilated via a nuclear disaster. Nplate is approved to treat blood cell injuries that accompany acute radiation syndrome in adult and pediatric patients, otherwise known as ARS. Well, we had sudden adult death syndrome, SADS, and now we have ARS. We went from SADS to ARS. All right, so just incredible. Amgen, based in Thousand Oaks, California, developed Nplate for ARS with support from the Biomedical Advanced Research and Development Authority, otherwise known as BARDA, which apparently is part of the HHS Administration for Strategic Preparedness and Response, otherwise known as ASPR, and the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, which is part of the National Institutes of Health, otherwise known as NIH. I wonder if Dr. Fauci is doing any work here to prevent, well, you can't really prevent nuclear annihilation. This whole thing is really kind of silly if you think you're going to take a drug and it's going to save you from a nuclear war. That is ridiculous. BARDA, again, the Biomedical Advanced Research and Development Authority, is using its authority provided under the 2004 Project BioShield Act. Gee, funny how that happened back when it was George W. Bush, probably the worst president of my lifetime. Yep. Sorry. Well, no. Well, I'm thinking Biden or Bush, but Bush set all this craziness up, and his buddy McCain in 2014 put the icing on the cake with Lindsey Graham, who is unfortunately still in the Senate. So anyway, BARDA is using its authority provided under this 2004 Project BioShield Act and $290 million in Project BioShield designated funding to purchase this drug. Amgen will maintain the supply in vendor-managed inventory. Who cares? This approach decreases life cycle management costs for the taxpayers. Oh, gee, thank you so much. Because doses that near expiration can be rotated into the commercial market for rapid use prior to expiry, and new doses can be added to the government supply. In the inventory business, that's called FIFO, first in, first out. I'm just so grateful that the government is saving me money as I die from a nuclear explosion. Yeah, nuclear winter. It's just, folks, we're going to be incinerated. These drugs aren't going to do anything. ARS, also known as radiation sickness, occurs when a person's entire body is exposed to high doses of penetrating radiation, reaching internal organs in a matter of seconds. Oh, good, good. Symptoms of ARS include death. No, include impaired blood clotting. So we went from too much clotting to now impaired clotting as a result of low platelet counts, which can lead to uncontrolled and life-threatening bleeding. Okay, so so you get hit with radiation, you're going to die. All right. Life-threatening bleeding, you don't have platelets, they can't stop the bleeding, you just bleed out, and that's the end of everything. But probably you won't be around, to do that, because again, the force of a nuclear explosion, you won't get to this point. If you get to this point, I guess this amazing drug company has this wonderful solution for you. To reduce radiation-induced bleeding, they continue. This is from HHS. N-plate stimulates the body's production of platelets. Oh, good. The drug can be used to treat adults and children. N-plate is an approved drug, and they go on to talk about how it can help with blood disorders, low platelet counts. Oh, by the way, this is repurposing drugs. We couldn't do that for the pandemic, right? We couldn't repurpose drugs, but we're doing it now for nuclear fallout. I guess this is a big enough reason, but that last thing was not. Wow. The U.S. government said the procurement of N-plate was not in response to the war in Ukraine. This is comedy. I swear, Saturday Night Live, if they weren't so narrative created, I mean, they just help preserve and create the narrative each week. When they deviate off that track, they quickly get back in line. It's really sad. An HHS spokesman told The Telegraph, this is part of our ongoing work for preparedness and radiological security. Radiological security. I've never once heard that phrase. Like last year, I started hearing the term food insecurity, and now it's all over the place. So I've got food insecurity. Really? What'd you do? Miss a meal? You got food insecurity? I mean, you know who has food insecurity? People in third world countries that were pretty much starving to death because we can't negotiate with Putin. That's what's happening. But they say, oh, this is just a coincidence. We're just doing this because we have to do it. It has nothing to do with this situation in Ukraine. The State Department last week urged all Americans to leave Russia as soon as possible in the wake of the sabotage of the Nord Stream pipelines. Wait a minute, I thought Russia blew them up. So if Russia blew them up, then Russia wouldn't be mad that they blew up their own pipelines, right? But if someone else blew them up, then Russia would be pissed off and would want to retaliate. Just makes sense. They're telling all Americans to leave Russia as soon as possible. The official reasoning they gave was to avoid getting conscripted in their mobilization effort. In other words, Putin's going to recruit American citizens to fight in the war. But that logic only applied to dual citizens, and their advisory was for all Americans. The real reason they told everyone to leave is more likely the risk of a full-blown war breaking out due to the US, Ukraine, or Poland being responsible for the belligerent bombing of the pipelines. Well, Russia has issued statement after statement warning the US that they will use nuclear weapons to defend their territory and are not bluffing. The US has been shipping billions in high-tech weaponry to Ukraine to attack Russian forces and to strike inside of Russia. Just last week, Congress voted to send another $12.3 billion in military and economic aid to Ukraine. And by the way, both parties are doing this, folks. You know, you have a few dissenters on the right. You have like maybe one dissenter on the left. I don't even know if there are any dissenters on the left anymore. And I'm just saying, that's why I don't think labels mean anything anymore. Biden said in February, after the war broke out, that Americans should not be worried about a nuclear war, then spent the next 8 months antagonizing Russia and China with endless provocations to make nuclear war more likely than ever. So that's the story from Zero Hedge, people. The US buying $290 million worth of anti-radiation drugs for use in a nuclear emergency. And we all just sit here and I don't know, what are we doing? We're not doing, our country is doing nothing to de-escalate this. And, you know, I did a video on my other channel about Roger Waters saying that the United States is guilty of all this stuff. And we're the biggest bully, probably 10 times greater than the next bully, which probably is what, the UK? I don't know. People think China is the bully. Look, I think if we left China alone, they would just do their thing. We may not like some of the stuff going on in China. Okay. But, you know, all of this is leading to a full-blown nuclear war. And the proof is right here. Remember what they did prior to the pandemic? They ran a simulation of a pandemic. And I'll tell you what, I mean, Operation Warp Speed, man, that was so quick. That stuff was on the market faster than anything in history, faster than any product. And people were lining up to do it. How much you want to bet people will be lining up to get these anti-radiation drugs? Insane. Here's the thing. A lot of people aren't going to be lining up because they're going to be dead. Okay. And we need to reverse course ASAP. And if you don't think it's going to happen, wouldn't you want to err on the side of caution? Hey, Putin. I mean, because they don't want to give Putin any kind of victory. Look, you want Ukraine, you can have Ukraine. It's not like Putin wants to go in there and blow up civilians. Okay. But he's getting to that point where he'll defend his own country with nukes, and he'll probably take this war up a notch and do some things that originally he probably didn't want to do. He probably wanted to go in and make it clear that he wanted the Donbass region to have self-determination, and some of these other places within Ukraine, he wanted those people to stop being radicalized. You hear that a lot here in the United States. These people are literal, like Azov radicals. Just, you know, when your insignia on your arm looks like something, you know, from Germany circa whatever, 1940, whatever. I mean, I don't know. People go, that's just a weird coincidence. And, you know, these are good people. Let's send them more money. And Americans don't really know what's happening. They just don't, because it's not being reported. And something like this, it's not a joke. I mean, you read it and you go, okay, you know, kiss my ass goodbye. What do? You have no control. There's been a theme since the beginning of the pandemic that it feels like they just want the world to stop. They just want, I mean, we just had a hurricane where I live, and, you know, there's all kinds of engineering you can do with the weather. Just saying, it's been around since what? I think LBJ talked about it in 1962. Yeah, I'm pretty sure if you'll look it up. And a lot of us who are in the conspiracy theory business or whatever. In other words, stuff that comes true later on or people should investigate. So if you want to debunk something, debunk it with facts, right? But I would say, okay, why are we buying these drugs? I mean, are we at a higher risk for nuclear war right now? Well, obviously, but it has nothing to do with the latest developments in Ukraine and Russia. It's just a coincidence, right? Wow. I couldn't believe this story when I read it. I couldn't believe it, and that's why I decided to share it here today. Thanks for watching. Best thing you can do is subscribe to the channel. Also, I don't plug it too much over here, but Patreon, I have a Patreon. It's connected to both channels that I run. If you click on the logo, you can do $1 a month to support the channel. It's really appreciated. I get hit pretty hard after during the hurricane. You know, the roof is going to need repairs and the yard is a mess. We had a tree come down on some cars out front. So yeah, it was fun. Had no power for a couple of days, but everything's good now for the most part, except, you know, just like everybody else in this country, it's kind of difficult to make ends meet when your government continues to just print money and rack up debt. $290 million for drugs. Hey, anti-radiation drugs. It might prolong your life, for a few more months, days, whatever. Just crazy. This is just insane. And again, it's hard to even imagine we're at this point, but we really are. All right. I will see you all soon.